Hey guys, I'm in Australia. Hey guys, it's Miranda. I have a million things to say. I've been living here in Australia for 6 weeks. A million trillion kajillion things have happened since I stepped foot on this base. We don't have time for all of it, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update on what has been happening in my life, some of the cool moments that have happened. Let's just get right into it. So I think the first thing to say is thank you to every single person who donated. Without your guys' financial support, I wouldn't be able to get here today, and I don't even know where to go with this video, but we're just gonna go with it. Before I get into some of my stories, I just want to quickly explain like where I'm at, what I'm doing, the rundown of basically what's happening right now. So first of all, I'm currently living in Brisbane, Australia. I have been here for about 6 weeks. So I'm here with Youth with a Mission, enrolled in their discipleship training school, which is a 6-month program that is basically YWAM is a missions organization that does training. That's kind of the best way to put it. It's not a school that happens to do missions, but we are here for missions, but they like to train us prior to that, which is really cool. Our training here is divided into 2 different phases. So we have lecture phase and then outreach phase. Lecture phase is, I can't remember how many weeks, but it's about 4 months-ish, give or take. A lot of like classroom time and a lot of like, we live here on base in Brisbane. And then outreach phase, we all split up into 7 different teams going to 7 different countries. Take what we've learned during lecture phase and apply that. So they teach us how to be disciples, and then we go and we make him known. We make God known by sharing our stories, our testimonies, our the gospel. And a lot of us are here to pursue missions full-time, which is really scary because missions full-time is more like donation based. You don't have an income, no one's paying you to preach. It's also a really amazing experience if that's what God has called you to, because he will continuously provide for you financially, which is really cool. If you guys want more information, just look it up on YWAM.com or YWAMBrisbane.com. That's the base that I'm at. So I have a little script that I'm going to go based off of that I wrote up just to keep us on track. Really cool. This is like one of my favorite parts about being here, I think. Every culture, every background is represented here. Just on my school, so you have different schools happening all around base. So my school is called the MAD school, so it's music, art, dance, photography, and videography, and then coffee. So 6 different tracks all put together into one school, and we're called the MAD school. So there's 55 of us on that school, and just in my school, these are the countries that are represented. Germany, New Zealand, Switzerland, Sweden, Italy, Brazil, Australia, Canada, Africa, all around the US, Caribbean, and more. Like, it's amazing to think that all of us felt the call to come here on a small little YWAM Brisbane campus, and we're all living in community together, and they're like my family now, which is pretty incredible in my opinion. But also, there are different cultures. There's been a lot of lessons that I've learned. There's a lot of things that I didn't know before. There's a lot of maybe disagreements that we have because we grew up so differently, but I really believe that God has been moving through those situations and really growing us as a community and as one big family. So I quickly want to share this story with you guys. So a few weeks ago, November 4th through November 7th, my school, so like 55 of us, got on a bus and we drove to Sunny Coast, and we met up with 450 other YWAM students from different bases all around Australia, and then there was one that flew in from New Zealand, which is pretty cool. 450 students all together for like 4 or 5 days at this conference that it was filled with lots of music, camping in tents, which is so fun, showers, and like a porta potty thing. Let's just say I didn't take a shower all week. Anyways, so we spent this whole week at this prayer and worship conference, and it was filled with lectures, just teachings, different classes, lots of camping, lots of sun, worship, lots of singing and dancing, and I'll include a couple clips here from the prayer and worship conference to give you guys kind of an idea of what it was like. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of really amazing things happened, but there was specifically one night that I just want to tell you guys about. So first night that we got there, they had like a worship and a teaching for us to kind of welcome us in and stuff. We had set up our tents and we all came in to kind of, you know, mingle and whatever. So we had a worship session, just lots of singing, and during that time, God like put this heavy weight on me that there were people in the room that were feeling really suicidal, and you guys know that I have a big heart for mental health. So I was like, okay, God, like, let me start praying for them. Like, I'm going to start, like, really just asking you to, like, intervene in these situations and in people's minds and begin to, like, whatever, right? Okay, so I was like, I'm going to start praying for them. All night I prayed for people in that room that I was in, anyone who was feeling suicidal or depressed, that God would come into that situation, okay? So I was praying for that all night. Then we had a sermon. And then we had more music. So the music starts up again, right? And again, God just like off this heavy weight of like people in the room that are really suicidal. Because you guys know I've also struggled with that. Like 60 days before I left for YWAM, I was going to commit suicide, which is insane to think about now. But I was in a really bad place. And my brother actually was the one my younger brother Landon, was the one to convince me to hold on and to wait until YWAM, which is, yeah. I love him a lot and I miss him so much. Anyways, so yeah, suicide is something that's really heavy on my heart, and so I was praying for it that night. So anyway, so he's talking again during worship. Like he comes over the mic, music is still playing, everyone's praying, whatever. He comes over the mic and he starts to talk about, he's like, this was just laid on my heart and I feel like I need to say it. And he just goes into this like big, like inspirational like message, right? And then he starts talking about self-image and how a lot of us in the room needed healing for that, and we just go into this massive, he goes in this massive thing about self-image, and I just realized how I have such a poor self-image, I talk really negatively to myself about myself, and when I look in the mirror I hate who I'm looking at. So yeah, he's talking and all of a sudden like tears are flowing and I just drop to the ground. And then he says, if you need prayer for this, raise your hand right now. I raise my hand, I'm crying, I'm on the ground, and all of a sudden I feel hands all over my body, all over my back, and just voices beginning to pray for me and just take over that situation, which was incredible. If you guys have never had something like that happen, it probably sounds really weird and maybe scary and like kind of like culty or something, but it was amazing. It's kind of hard to explain all right sitting here, but yeah, so they began to pray over me, which I was crying, I'm sitting like I'm on the ground just crying, and these people are praying over me, hugging me. It was awesome, right? So that went on for probably like 10 minutes. Then he gets back on the mic and he was like, I have this feeling like that there's depression and suicide in the room. And if you're struggling with suicidal thoughts, please raise your hand so we can pray for you. And all of a sudden, all these hands start shooting up. And God was like, almost like he was telling me, he's like, yeah, Miranda, these are all the people that you've been praying for all night. Which was so cool. I was like, I've been praying for all these people. I didn't know who I was praying for. I was just asking God, anyone in the room who was feeling suicidal, like, please take those thoughts away from them. And he just revealed to me, these are all the people that are struggling, which was crazy. Then, as I sat there and I looked around, I was like, wow, this is incredible. I saw people jumping over different like people on the ground and jumping over church pews to get to these people to like lay their hands on them, because in the Bible says if you lay your hands on someone, like call out to Jesus, and yeah, that God can heal them through you, which is pretty crazy. So people are running to them, just like laying their hands on them and just starting to pray and like ask God, like, please like intervene in the situation. So I'm looking at all this and I'm like, wow. And then I realize I still fall into that category of being suicidal and depressed. So I raised my hand. Now this is probably now a month ago. So I raised my hand and I continued to get prayer for it, which was incredible. And then all of a sudden the speaker comes off the stage. I can't remember. Actually, he came off the stage earlier, before this. But anyways, he came off the stage at one point and starts praying for people around the room, like going and laying his hand on them and praying. He comes over to me, he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he's like, what's your name? And I was like, Miranda. I'm like crying, I'm like, my name's Miranda. And he's like, He's like, you've been put on my heart all night, and I really feel like the Lord like wants to tell you something through me. And so he goes into this whole thing about, he's like, I feel like you've been believing a lot of lies about yourself, and I feel like you've been really confused for a while. And I think he was talking about my sexuality, which is a whole separate topic, but it's true. But he like went into like, I can't even remember everything right now, but he went into such specific details that there's no way he would have known that other than God speaking to him about it, which is pretty crazy. And he told me, he was like, literally, you've been put on my heart like all night, which is really cool. Anyways, so he prays for me. Then I think later on then he talks about the suicide, and I realized I still fall into that category, so I raised my hand and began to get prayer for that, which was amazing. Okay, so I forgot a little piece of the puzzle, so yeah, before I get into the story about what happened, the day that we were leaving for camp, I was like spending time with God, just talking to him. I was actually journaling, and God was like, okay, write down everything that I'm telling you in your mind. And I'm like, okay, whatever, right? So I start writing everything that comes to mind, and like God's speaking to me. So God, like, in my opinion, I felt like God was writing me a letter, and so I start writing it out, and this is exactly what it said. Now, this is the day I left for the prayer and worship conference. I was just out by myself doing my own thing. He said, Miranda, I want you to love yourself as I do. I want you to believe that you fulfill my goal. I want you to see my earth and my people. Remember my promises, remember my timing. Keep spending time with me. I created you. I know you better than anyone. Why wouldn't you want to guard your time with me? Keep loving my people and keep investing in Andrew, which is the kid that I met under the fig tree. If you guys have read my blog, if you haven't, I'll put it in the description. Keep coming back to rest with me. And that's what he wrote me. Also, the same day, I felt like God was speaking through my friend Micah, which he's on my outreach team, so you guys will see him plenty. I felt like he told Micah this, and it really just, it still echoes in my mind like every single day, this little phrase. He said, he was like, Miranda, we are all perfect for who God made us to be, and we are fully capable to fulfill the role that God created for us. It's so true. Like, God created a role for us, and the person that we see in the mirror every single day, we can fulfill that role. That's all God's asking us to do. God is not asking us to change our hair color or lose all that weight and get rid of the acne and, oh my gosh, cover up those dark circles. Like, he's not asking us to do that. Is he okay if we, want to do those things? That's fine, yeah. But don't, like, beat yourself up over it, because the person you see in the mirror can fulfill God's role that he has for you, and that's the only role that actually matters. And I definitely, like, when Micah said that, it really set with me, and I was like, wow, like, that's true. And so I remember that morning, I like went into the bathroom, and I just told myself, I was like, you can fulfill the role that God has for you. And that simple step created a ripple effect into healing for my self-image, my poor self-image that I was creating. Another thing I found really interesting, so I was talking to one of the leaders here. His name is Jacob Carter. If you guys get to meet him, he's amazing. He also has a podcast on Spotify, and he brings on all the YWAM students. So if you guys are thinking about coming to YWAM Brisbane, you want to hear some of the stories of our students, or if you want to hear some of the staff, go to Spotify. I'll link it down below. I don't remember what it's called right now, but it's YWAM Brisbane. Anyways, so I was talking to Jacob, and Jacob said to me, he was like, what are you thinking right now? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, and I just told him. And we started talking about how weird it is if you start thinking about, like, really paying attention to where your thoughts are going, like, just, like, as you're just walking, right? And so he asked me, he was like, are your thoughts really, like, specific? Like, you stick on one thing for a long time, or are they everywhere? I was like, I would say they're mostly everywhere. And he was like, okay. And so, anyways, like 5 minutes later, he saw me walking down these stairs, and he yells from across the way. He's like, Miranda, what are you thinking right now? Just like out of the blue. And I realized that I was walking down the stairs, and I was thinking about, I can't remember what it exactly was, but I was very degrading to myself. That's what I thought in my head. I don't know what I said to him. I was just like, I don't even know what I said to him. But in my head I was like, because it's so degrading and it's so embarrassing to say out loud what I was thinking. Because it's not true. Like, because what I was thinking that was so degrading was not true about myself. And it's embarrassing to even think, to say it out loud. So anyways, yeah, I just have really realized that I don't have the best self-image of myself. I don't always like the person that I see in the mirror, which really sucks. Anyways, but yeah, that was definitely a step towards finding healing in my self-image. And yeah, through that prayer and worship conference, I'm so thankful that I came back from that conference back to base here and just had a whole new way of looking at myself in the mirror, and I don't hate what I see in the mirror anymore, which is really nice. So anyways, that was about, we'll say like 20 days ago, and ever since then God has been revealing so much to me. So I kind of wanted to quickly rapid fire tell you guys a couple of the things that God has been revealing to me and some of the things to come into the future. Okay, so the main message God has told me is that I'm a bold, strong-willed leader who has a massive heart for the brokenhearted, and he's going to utilize each of those qualities, which is really, really exciting. So the first heart goal that God gave me was towards the LGBT community. So I want to bridge the gap between Christians and the church. Not every church, but the church as a whole doesn't like to talk about homosexual, same-sex attraction, whatever you want to call it, things. Like they just don't talk about it as a whole. There are some churches, some people, some whatever that like to talk about it, but most don't. So I want to bridge the gap between that community and the church. I have personally had my own struggles with struggling with my sexuality. Yeah, I was like 16, 17. I'm not going to go too into it, but I really did struggle, and I was in a relationship that was not honoring God. And I'm so thankful that God has, through many years, many nights of crying myself to sleep and crying in my car and being super suicidal over it, many nights of that, God has brought me to this place now where I know what I believe and I know how I feel, and I know that I know who I am now. Which is really exciting. Not to say that I don't still have those feelings, because I do, but I choose God every day. That's a whole other story. But anyways, so I have a huge heart for the LGBT community because, yeah, I just do. So I want to be the bridge between those two extremes of hating gays and the LGBT community. Second one God has really been speaking to me about is mental health, and specifically suicide. You guys know that in 2017, I lost my childhood best friend Levi to suicide, which was awful, and I've also experienced some of my own suicidal thoughts. 60 days ago, before I came to YWAM, I was really suicidal. I was going to commit suicide. My brother convinced me to just hold on and to wait until YWAM, and honestly, if it hadn't been for that night of him like just being there for me, I probably would not be here. So just because I have such a strong love for him that I just couldn't do it to him, you know, like him knowing how awful I felt. And I remember, sorry to embarrass Landon, but I remember him like crying, like really heavily crying, and he doesn't cry, like he's just not that type of kid. He's 17. I just remember him crying and just like begging me not to do anything, and that was enough to give myself another chance at life, which, yeah, that's a whole separate thing. Okay, so another thing God's been telling me is I'm supposed to go to Japan for ministry at some point. I do have some connections to a YWAM base in Japan, which is pretty cool. And he specifically told me Japan, but not right now. Japan, but not right now, which is so funny to me because I'm like, what? Japan is also known as the missionary graveyard because there's very little progress for them coming to Christ, and they're just like yeah, a lot of missionaries give up. But good news is there is a amazing group of people going to Japan to pioneer a base there in Osaka, and I think they currently have 15 staff maybe, so they're hoping to run their first discipleship training school in the next year, which is crazy. And the very last thing that God has been really speaking to me is, Miranda, prepare for battle, prepare to fight for me, prepare to fight for my, like, the gospel, just keep preparing, because there's going to be a point pretty soon, I think. I don't know how this is going to work, but he just told me, he's like, you're not always going to be around people like the people you're around right now. Like, you're not always going to be around people that love you and support you and believe like you do, and X, Y, and Z. You're not always going to have someone right there next to you to, like, help. And so he told me, he was like, prepare for battle, prepare to be alone, and prepare to fight for me. So I was like, okay, God, like, okay, like, okay, cool. So it's really funny because the other night I was praying with some friends and I just decided to pray this really bold prayer. I was like, God, give me dreams so big that I know that they have to be from you, because that's how big the dreams are, and give me dreams so big that I can never accomplish them without you. And I feel like he's been slowly dishing them out, like okay, like, what about this, Miranda? Like, what about this? Like, let's keep talking about this and feeling it out, and just different opportunities. My notebook is full of stuff that God is like, okay, Miranda, like, let's be praying about this, because I have some really cool stuff for you, but we got to figure out which one we're going to do, you know? Okay, the last thing I want to tell you guys is I'm going to the Philippines. So I leave February 6th with a team of 8 people. We have our 2 leaders, Sophie and Hayden, and then we have Sam, Jay, Micah, Esther, Avery, me. And so, yeah, we have 4 girls, 4 boys. Super excited. I love them all. So we're going to the Philippines, Davao specifically. So we'll spend 2 weeks in Port McCoy helping them pioneer a base, which, oh, I forgot about that whole story. That'll be another story, another time. Port McCoy for 2 weeks, and then 6 weeks in Davao in the Philippines. So, super excited. So please just be praying for us. Pray for just unity in our group, and that we would just continue to become like a really tight-knit family, because yeah, you need that. Like, we need that for sure. Like, we're going to be in the Philippines, and it's going to be hard. The days are going to be really hard. Ministry is going to be tough, and we're going to be tired, and we're going to need to lean on each other a lot during that time. Thank you guys so much for loving me and supporting me. Film this video.